we're going to get into a bit more background detail in a bit, Jerry, about how you got into umpiring. But first of all, I'm going to get you to clear something up for me. So, is it true or is it not that you were the first Malaysian-born player to play county cricket? Because Al Sapar has been claiming this for years. So I see that you were born in Penang.
I was born in Penang many, many years ago, and although my parents obviously had British passports and I had a British passport, I was born in Penang and then lived in Singapore until I was 6.5 when my dad retired from Shell in 1961, and we moved to the lovely little village of Curry Rival, just west of here in Somerset.
Yeah, well, most people will know that you played for Somerset and Gloucestershire, but you know, went to school at Blundell's as well,
yeah.
And so you've been indoctrinated into West Country life for a long period of time now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Somerset became a home. Obviously, Blundell's is in Devon, but I actually went to a prep school in Burnham, which is sadly no longer there, called St Dunstan's, which was in Grove Road, and a certain other Somerset, I call him a great because he is, Vic Marks. We were at school there together. And our parents shared travelling to and from because he was in Middle Chinook, so you couldn't get more Somerset sounding than Middle Chinook. And he was going to King's Taunton, but King's Taunton was only like a new public school, so I persuaded him to come to Blundell's, which he did, thankfully. So we spent 8 years together. Him at inside right and I was inside left on the soccer field. He was scrum half to my fly half, and he batted 3 and I batted 4. So yeah, we go back a long way, Vic and I.
That's amazing, your parallels in terms of both of you kind of ended up staying in a game of cricket for so long in professional capacity as well, albeit slightly different routes these days.
Yeah. I ended up going on the young pro staff at Lloyds for 4 years, and Vic had obviously gone to Oxford University. And eventually I got a contract here in '79, having been out to South Africa, so I've got to thank Don Wilson and St Stithians College in South Africa for that opportunity, which changed me as a player, to make me realise that probably had to work a little bit harder. Not that I didn't work hard, but I had to work harder in the right direction.
Yeah, sometimes it's about understanding what you need to work hard at rather than just working hard, isn't it?
It is, and you've got to work out a way of how you are going to play in the game, and you know, the senior pros are very helpful, but sometimes going away on your own meant that you really had to perform. I was lucky at St Stithians that 4 of the kids in the first team were playing for the old boys on a Sunday, and I played on the Sunday. I couldn't play on the Saturday league cricket because obviously schools cricket was more important. And I started playing, and I'm suddenly thinking, I'm telling them to do this, that and the other. If I come out and don't do that, they're not really going to think I'm that good of a coach. So I really did have to knuckle down and get runs and get wickets. And it made a massive difference to me.
We're going to skirt through your playing career a little bit, Jerry, because I want to really focus on the second part of your career today. But let's just touch on the fact 333 wickets in first class cricket as an off spinner, and over 10,000 runs, 10 hundreds, making your first class debut in 1979. So a mere 41 years involved in not just the game of cricket, but from a first class perspective. That's an awful long time in the game, Jerry. You must be extremely proud and seen an awful lot of things as a player, coach, umpire during that time.
Absolutely. Don't forget the 220 plus catches as well. But I mean, that was one of the great things about being on the ground staff. We spent an awful lot of time fielding, and I saw recently, sadly, that Chetan Chowan, the Indian cricketer, passed away. And I remember a game here. I was over in somewhere just beyond Somerton, and I was called in to do 12th man when David Gurr couldn't play. So I had to rush back, and of course no mobile phones in those days, and I had to miss out on a proper Sunday lunch, and arrived here and did fielding and fielded for Somerset, and it sort of, that afternoon sort of stamped me on my fielding, because I caught Dilip Bensarkar one-handed diving at cover off Viv, and then run out Chetan Chowan. So it was a good start for me. But obviously not being able to bat and bowl in the game, but it was a start for me.
And certainly from myself, in terms of some of the young players we work with, certainly here driving the imperativeness of being able to field well. So a note to myself on my notes to not leave out the fielding, certainly. Let's talk about how you got into umpiring. So if I look at the statistics, it says 1998 you started on the
main list. It was 96 on the reserve list. I'd been coaching when I finished with Gloucester in 91. I lived in South Africa for 10 years and was involved in Western Province youth provincial coaching. I ran that whole setup, which was great fun. I had John Hardy over there with me and 2 or 3 other guys from Alison Johnson, who was a West Indian, and then we obviously had when the joined together, the board and South African cricket became unified. We had a whole host of pros coming out to play for all the board sides, so the likes of Alan Ford and Oish and 1 or 2 others. They sort of I'm not sure Ace wasn't around by then, but I was also in charge of looking after them and working out which clubs would be best for them. And I remember in '94, Christmas '94, went down to Durban for the Under-19 National Festival, and Barry Mayer was there, obviously ex-Gloucestershire great, an umpire, and he said to me in passing, he said, "Have you ever umpired?" And I said, "Well, I umpire practice games when we have trials and that sort of thing, and quite frankly it's the best place to watch cricket from, because you see everything happening." And he said, "Well, it was then the Test and County Cricket Board." He said, "They're a bit top heavy age-wise." He said, "Why don't you apply?" So it meant then obviously having to give up the Western Province, and I managed to get a coaching post at Epsom College. Applied through Tony Brown at the Test and County Cricket Board, who then put my name forward in that October of '95, and I got on the list, reserve list, '96. So I did 2 seasons on the reserve list, '96 and '97, and was coaching at Haileybury College at the time. And there was a guy there, a certain Mr. Townsend, whose younger brother, Martin, is now involved with helping the groundsman down here and 1 or 2 others with the fertilisers. So it sort of almost has come back full circle, because I spoke to Martin the other day about it. And yeah, so that's really how I got on into umpiring. I loved it, absolutely loved it.
So coming full circle, we've reached the kind of statutory level in terms of age, in terms of the ECB kind of saying you have to kind of move on, unfortunately. What are your reflections now in terms of having been that umpire on the reserve list in 1996, and then coming off that list now? What are your reflections on that journey?
Wow, it seems like yesterday. And if I had any advice to anybody, is to make the most of every moment. Because you think, oh well, I've got 25 years in the game and that's loads and loads and loads of time, and then all of a sudden you're finished. It's the end, and you sort of think, God, where did all that time go? So yeah, I've loved every minute of it. I've been privileged enough, not only when I played with some greats, obviously here with Sir Ian and with Sir Viv and Joel Garner, Martin Crowe, and people forget that Sunil Gavaskar played here in 1980 when the West Indies were touring, and he came and played. And then obviously going on to Gloucester with Courtney Walsh, I include Jack Russell in one of the greats, standing next to him for 7 years as a keeper was wonderful. And then obviously with the umpiring, having watched and seen some of the greats play over the last 25 years, it's the best seat in the house.
Well, let's talk about that then. So what have you enjoyed the most about your umpiring journey?
I think basically making lots of friends, possibly not bowlers or the odd batsman when you've made a mistake, but I think travelling around the world, seeing different countries, seeing different cultures. But I think the most important thing for me is having seen so many great players and I had a ringside seat for it. And the bonus was, it's something I loved doing, and I got paid for it.
Got any particular memorable moment that stands out?
Well, one of the sad things obviously was we could do ODIs here, so I've done England, Australia at Lloyds, and having spent 4 years at Lloyds on the young pro staff, it's sort of a home from home as well. But I had done a Boxing Day test match with Australia and Pakistan. It was around the time of the Commonwealth Games over there in 2004-05. So they had a drop-in pitch, and the turf, the outfield had only just been redone, and part of the stand was open. So, but there were 70,000 there on the first day, so that was quite an experience. I've done an ODI at Newlands, which was obviously another home from home because I worked there for 3 years. Yeah, so I've had some good moments. I've done a final, a Lloyds final. I've done some T20 finals days, which are hard work because it is a massively long day. But yeah, it's been great fun, and I've thoroughly enjoyed every moment of it.
This is perhaps a difficult question for an umpire, because like it or not, we've all been on, and I'm sure you had many times in your career, on the receiving end of a bad one from an umpire. Have you got any decisions that really regrettable ones where you think, oh, do you know what, I've got that badly wrong?
I didn't think I'd got it wrong at the time, but Lloyds final, Sussex Lancashire, gave Stewie Law out. For me, it looked like I hadn't seen it go off the face into the pad. It was gun barrel, but if I could have had that over again, I would have done. You know you're going to make mistakes. You're human, and you obviously don't want to get it wrong, but sometimes you do. But you have to be open and honest about it, and hold your hand up that you've got it wrong. You can't hide from it. It's your mistake. You've made a mistake. So you you have a look at it, and then have a chat with the bowler or with the batsman and say, I promise to get it right next time, or try to anyway.
Slightly loaded questions. I was hoping you were going to say, actually, in the second innings of my first class debut at Edgbaston, when I was caught short leg off Alex Loudon, caught Ian Bell, but you know, that didn't stick in the mind, that one?
No. You obviously didn't hit it, or did you?
We'll move on. But you've come across, you know, some of the names you've already mentioned, some of the great and the good, you know, some characters and colleagues. You know, I guess this is a very tough question, but anyone kind of that you're really going to miss, or anyone that that springs out that you've enjoyed their company?
I think one of the things, and I was talking to some of the younger lads at Northampton when we were in the field last Sunday. Up until lunchtime, and I think one of the things I'm going to miss is the banter on the field. I mean, and I mean good banter, you know, because some of the chirps are seriously funny, and I think that side of it I'm going to miss. And I'm old school, you know, having a couple of beers after the game with some of the players or your colleagues, and some of the banter that comes through with that, and some of the funny moments. And you talk about, oh God, do you remember? Oh God, yeah, I remember that. So yeah, that side of it I think is the one thing I'm going to miss the most.
What are you most proud of in your cricketing journey, Jerry?
Well, I think one of the things, one, I've loved it, but one of the things I was asked last year by one of the match referees. They said to me, how do you want to be remembered? You've got your last year next year, which is a bonus year because it's the pensionable age, so it's 66 now. And I said, if I leave the game and people say about me that he was as good at the end as he ever was, then I'd be very happy. I think what you don't want is your last season, you think, oh well, take it easy, but you can't, because it's your love of the game, respect of the game, respect for the players. They're playing for their careers, and I think I know what it was like early doors in my career, desperately trying to play for your county. So out of respect for them and the game, you've got to make sure you keep doing it to the last ball, because you're only as good as your next ball, and once that last ball's finished you can go, okay, and hopefully not have got too many wrong.
I was meaning to ask you earlier, it just came back to me now. You know, some umpires have got their quirks and their different ways of doing things. You coined a very verbal phrase in terms of "that's out," as you used to tell me all too often. Where did that come from? Where did that kind of...
It was a little bit from Kenny Palmer and one or two others here at Somerset, because you get some guys who nick it, stand and look down at the ground and start scratching the floor. So you wait for them to look up, or if they don't look up, then you say, well, that's out. So they're in no uncertain terms that they're out. And I think sometimes when there's a lot of noise around the ground, it's just to let them know that that's the decision, and they can look wherever they want, except looking at you. So that's sort of part of it. I know the boys say they always know when I'm going to give somebody out, because I tend to drop my head to one side. And one or two have got shocked looks on their face because I flip a coin up and they think the finger's coming to be given out. I think a couple of the Northants boys, the younger guys who didn't know me, they sort of, oh, no, all right. As they had just flipped a coin over. So that's the sort of quirk. I've had the same coins from day one. I did a game at Cambridge University with Knocker White. And I suddenly thought about an hour and a half before, I haven't got anything to count with. So I nipped to the local shop, and I ended up with 6 50p's and a 10p. So one of them had the sort of joined hands on the back of it, so I put that in the box, and I've had five 50p's and a 10p. The 50p's were obviously past their sell-by date and they're a bit worn down, but I've always had those coins. I suppose you sort of... Most cricketers have got superstitions, and that's one of them.
From everybody at Somerset Cricket, you know, congratulations on what has been a extraordinary long career in all different facets of the game. Certainly wish you well in your next chapter, and definitely we're going to miss you out in the middle.
Well, thank you for that, but I can't leave you without mentioning the fact that I did captain Taunton Rugby many years ago, and they are very close to my heart, and they happen to be the first team I look up on a Saturday afternoon to see their results. So yeah, I mean, Somerset and Taunton, the area will always be close to my heart, so thank you.